Jingjin, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Andrea, for having me.
Jingjin, you've operated at the highest levels across cultures and industries prior to funding Elevate. When did you first realize that you wanted to focus on advancing women's inclusion and social justice? And why is this important for you?
Well, I would say probably the work has found me. So initially, a little bit to my background. So I grew up in China and then went to Germany when I was 16. And in China, I was not necessarily the most obedient girl. I was quite socially unconformed because I was so opinionated. They asked a lot of questions and extroverted, and I was not that good at academic. So probably that's why I was not recognized as the good girl where a lot of girls and parents want them to play with. So I ended up actually playing a lot with boys, and I recognized myself rather like a tomboy kind of girl, and then which led to my study and my future work always being in. I studied industrial engineering in Germany and have embarked my career in a very male-dominated industry. At the beginning, rail automation, then commercial vehicles. And whenever I encounter the few women that I'm working with, I always see the same pattern across countries. Women doing exceptional work, but then for some reason they have zero influence. So, and then me being then the only woman, only Asian, always being different, made it actually impossible to unseen how systems has decided, okay, who gets trusted, who gets heard, and then who gets promoted. So then somehow I believe I stop believe this is a confidence problem, which I initially thought is rather a access and power problem. And then one thing led to the other over the past 10 decades. It's become a passion and calling just to this unjust in myself to see so many brilliant women doing brilliant work and without being seen. There must be something that which helped me to get there, and I want to pass that by.
Because often you have been the only woman, the only Asian, and possibly even the youngest voice in a room, what have you learned about power and what can you share with our audience so they can rise up to opportunities and rise their voice in a room where it may be more male dominated, or from a cultural perspective, we may not necessarily be invited to voice our opinions?
This is actually a hard question, and I can only speak from my own lived experience. Okay. So I think number one, women in general, you need to feel extremely comfortable with power. I think the word power, especially in today's climate, is actually quite a bad word, especially when it comes from a woman. You just imagine have a man, an average man and an average woman standing beside each other, and the man says, "Oh, I'm powerful. I want power." Nobody feel weird. Okay, it's just another day. And then you have this woman, let's say they both have, business attire. They all clearly come from business. The woman say confidently, I want to have power on. I want to be powerful. I am the person in power. Frankly, just imagine that make everybody uncomfortable, myself included. No, if I see a woman, claim unapologetically her power, the first okay, what's the matter with her? That's greedy. Oh, so the social conditioning is actually across the globe. So if you have a skewed relationship with power, but you actually want to rise the corporate ladder or be the billion-dollar entrepreneur, you have to be the person in power and you have to develop a genuine positive relationship with power. And I think that's number one. And also, I also think that power is one thing I learned through my own journey is that power is something you have to claim it. You absolutely have to claim it. Even if when I was my first corporate, I would say was called promotion. My first, from product manager to team lead. I worked my ass off and I had a very empowering boss. And then after 3 years, he said, "Jing, you should be on that track." He always know that I always told him that I want to be the first female CEO, first female Chinese CEO to run a Fortune 500 company in Germany, the DAX registered company. And but I think I was not secure enough to say it out loud because I didn't believe it back then. And then he always hold me accountable. And then he said, okay, then you have to make your leap, because I was not ready, obviously, after 3 years, and you have to take it. So I took it, and then I kept doing the good work, and then compensate and do everything. And one day he came to me and said, you do know you have to claim it. Just because you become the team leader, if you don't claim your power, as in the interaction you have now with your peers, so they don't step over you, the interaction you have with your team, with your former teammates, now your employee in the team, you have to claim that. Just because you get the title means nothing. I think that was very revealing, and I think that's also something that, now working with thousands of women, I recognize. Even when they get promoted, they say, okay, now I am in charge. So how does that translate? How does my language change? How does my interaction change? What do I start doing? You actually have to reset yourself.
Could we actually dive deeper into what do we need to stop and start doing more in order to claim that power?
I think that's also very individual, because also one thing that I learned now working with so many women is that something might work for you, for me, and it does not work for Priya in India working for a Indian, very traditional boss. So I think that especially the cultural elements are inside, and often how we have rise to a certain level, or how we have not managed to rise to a certain level. We have already done a lot of work that define who we are. So if now someone come to you saying, I'm exaggerating, just be confident, speak up in the next meeting. If you never have spoken up, you suddenly get into a meeting and then put all your courage together and say, I speak up now. It's gonna fail miserably, and then you will never speak up again. Therefore, I think anything one has to, in order to gain whatever level of power you want to gain, the number one step is actually to understand, okay, what has brought you here, or why has it not worked out yet? Let's say you want to be director of operation, and you have been there for 5 years in a reasonable amount of year, and let's say your review are all good, and you are liked, you have no, you are confident that it's not a competence issue. Okay, then I will grab actually 5 people: your immediate peer, a trusted teammate, your direct boss, your dotted line boss, or someone and then ideally someone who is 2 level above you, who has a positive working experience with you, or a negative working experience with you, and you get a small kind of 360-degree review to say, okay, what do people see me, how do they see it, different level, and then you will find certain commonality, and then you ask them, okay, why do you think that I have this ambition and I want to be there, but obviously I'm not. What do you think is missing? And I think that's number one, to assess, okay, what have you, to assess the status quo first, and then develop an individual plan to see, okay, how do I gain power? For example, a good example is, for some, I had a teammate in India. I was with my previous company 3 years in Chennai, and I was a very weird outlier, as in I was expatriated from the headquarters, which was in Brussels/Germany, Europe, but I'm Chinese. So from the power dynamic with the Indian team, we are actually equal, because you are Chinese, we're Indian, so there is no white privilege or any kind. But you are actually expatriated from the headquarters, and I was reporting to the CMO. So okay, how do we allocate her? So I had actually it took quite a while to actually get warm with team, with everybody. And then one day there was this she's actually from Sri Lanka, but has been in India for quite a long time. And then she said, and she has done outstanding work. And then some of the things she told me, she has observed. It's just a small team lead, actually. And I was like, actually, why have you never? You are up for so much more. Have you ever considered actually to do more? And she said, yeah, but I can only do quiet work. I can never, to, with all my Indian bosses, with everybody, I can never claim my voice. And if I don't speak up, if I speak up, everybody, this is just not culture conform because she was, I think, slightly 40-ish, and everybody's gonna be, okay, what happened to her? And then so I helped her in that case to actually spread her influence because she was very good in identifying gaps that people cannot see, in letting in the deck, letting in the strategy, let it be understand to read the room, but she just never speak up. So we actually place her in certain project where she has more exposure, where you actually communicate with someone via email. Well, we have back then was no Slack chat, was our team chat, same time, and all various kind of tool that she actually take the lead silently. So in a way, she got exposure, just not verbally. And then after a year, actually, the vice president of India in the operation side actually came to me and saying, I think this is a talent. And do you know whether she wants to move? And because this also, again, culture, he does not want to ask her directly. And I was like, oh my God, hell yes. So therefore, but it's, if you give her then the traditional, okay, you have to speak up. Let's map your, what you're gonna say in the next meeting and how to be visible in QBR, she's going to fail. Therefore, I think everyone needs to find out where you are and what are your superpower and develop from there.
What is your opinion on vulnerability and how that connects to power? Research has shown that to build trust, we need to become more vulnerable. In your work, can you share your view on how vulnerability connects to the concept of power for women specifically?
I have a very opinionated view, and I think that's not is not for everyone. I think vulnerability is, especially for women, is a privilege. You have to earn it first. You are allowed to be vulnerable when you have kind of made it, whatever made it mean to you. What I mean by made it, for example, if I say I made it, my definition at this stage is that I run a company with my business partner that I can design my life around, around the entrepreneurship. I can work at 1-2 a.m., but I take a big nap today at 3 p.m. I don't need to respond to anybody, only to my client. And I am to the largest extent my own boss. I think that's at this life stage, my definition of I made it. And I can be absolutely vulnerable because I feel comfortable. So if I share anything, for example, with my clients, and it's something that I think, tell them the hard truth, or some of the things that I experienced, the trauma and the things that I have to go through in my corporate life, which made me there, I am very comfortable sharing that. So now, if I take myself back in my early 30s when I first made to director role, I think maybe this is my self-limiting belief because we can't go back. I think if I think I was a new leader and I was on top, everyone was looking at me, the only woman, only Asian, oh my God, the youngest, and if I dare to be vulnerable, I think I'll be killed because I wouldn't feel comfortable to be vulnerable. And then, I mean, vulnerability, there are so many aspects of vulnerability. Now, let's just say, okay, there was a stage, there was a time where I just can't hold it anymore. I could burst into tear and let it all out. Oh my God, this is just the imagination of that. I think she just doesn't have her shit together. And I think at that stage, I could not be vulnerable. But much later, I think my last corporate role, where I felt most comfortable in before I actually quit my corporate career, I had teammates which are women who think they have to choose between career and motherhood. And back then, I was a very bitter single because I have zero time to date, I would say. And I share very vulnerably with them. What's the price to bring me here as well? Because when the CEO call, I'm going to fly to Brussels. And then if you have a real life, you just can't do but back then, and I think that actually connected me a lot with them, especially with the women. And but I was comfortable enough, and I was a person in power. Therefore, it's a combination.
I really love what you've just touched upon. What is a price? And What comes to mind also is women that may aspire to build a family and may ask themselves, what is the price of me building a family, being away from work? And of course, different cultures, different countries have different rules. In some cases, you may be away from work for a couple of weeks, and others, you have the possibility to be away for a year or even more. So, what advice would you have for women that may have a deep need to build a family, but may ask themselves, will the price to pay for building my family risk my career?
I think the number one question people need to ask is rather life is like you have seasons. Is this the right season to excel my corporate or whatever career, or is it the season to build my own family? And unfortunately for women, at the peak of our career, which is usually early 30 to early 40, let's say the time where you actually have enough professional, you have enough professional years behind you, you know where you are, you kind of know who you are, and the ability for you to, you're emotional more stable as well versus your 20s, but you have still a long runway. This is usually also the years where we meet our partner and then build a family. This as socially is just brutal. It is what it is. So one need to be very aware that whatever so-called balance simply does not exist. It's a liar. Anyone who say I have balance either have a army of help behind her or is just lying. And therefore, I think one needs to make conscious decision as in, for example, I want a career and I want a family. Okay, if I build a family now, what are the compromises I can make professionally? But one that everyone else is aware, because just because you become a mother, it might mean most of the time means that your absolute time is going to be less because obviously you have other obligations, but does not compromise your efficiency or your thinking process, your strategic or whatever brought you there where you are. In the moment where you start a family, I will recommend everybody, if you want to make a career at the same time, is to claim it. As in, you go to your boss or you go to whoever that your trusted person, someone in power in your company, assuming you want to grow in this company, you say, you know what, I'm planning to have a family. Or I mean, individual, you can also say that when you are really, really there, before announcing it, we're saying, but my ambition is to be one, two, three. Okay. So I want this two to combine. I'm very proud that I want to build a family. But I also want everyone to know that I want to be at work. So meaning, and I will make sure that at the back end, everything is settled down, is settled. And don't mistake don't come in and I think motherhood will make me, or building a family will make me better, will make me whatever that is true to you. I think to claiming this as this is so contradictory. I think this is so controversial in the sense of usually how women say is that, oh my God, I'm 3 months pregnant. Can I tell or not? Okay, in 5 months, you really, really have to tell. So how do I justify this to my manager? Failed, because in that moment where you will only justify something when you have done something wrong, right? So you have done nothing wrong. So now you coming in as in, oh my God, I'm pregnant. I have so many women telling their manager, and I mean there are also shitty manager and just say, oh, I had a manager who said, okay, I'm disappointed. I had a woman telling to me, and I mean this is just what I'm gonna say. You already know this is not the person necessarily will accelerate you. But if you come in and as a, okay, no, as a with your, let's say, apologetic wave, then they're gonna say, okay, then I have my husband helping, I have this help, that help. That again, it's all justification. So you should come in so that I'm gonna be, let's say I will be pregnant or I am pregnant, and I plan actually after 3 months to come back. I've sorted out everything, and then you make sure you state the elephant in the room as in, okay, and then this is going to happen. You might gonna think, okay, I won't hold it anymore. My plan is you give them the evidence why it will still work for you in whatever reasonable time. So you have to claim it with with power. I want to say something else, but you have to claim it with confidence. Something that actually make you better, a better human, a better employee, and a better someone who actually going through. This is a bit of a side chapter. I was up for a GM role in Minneapolis in the plant. And in our manufacturer, we bought a company back then in 2018. Yes, 2018. And then I had a great interview. I was, everyone think I'm gonna get it. But then the that time GM, who become then the advisory of the board, said no, she can't have it. The reason very simple. She thinks she's mature and she's very good in whatever she's doing, but she has never gone through adversity. Because in our interview, I told her, he actually asked me that, what's the hardest thing you have to go through? I was like, back in China, I have to done this, and then I studied German and all the things compared to motherhood, if I think of today, oh my God, they're all peanuts. Like so insignificant. And today I understand what he meant, because a lot of things, when you have to make big decisions on people's life, or who do you get rid of, or who do you fire, who do you hire, all these decisions for a well-being of a company, you actually need to have certain maturity in, I'm not saying in ages, but you have to gone through something. And his point is actually parenthood or caring for someone, for example, older parents or a sibling, actually make you a different person and make you a better leader. And I have to say it was very eye-opening today for me.
Since you spoke about the seasons of life, we spoke about motherhood. What advice would you have for women that may be in the early stages of menopause or in menopause themselves, and especially with all the media and the news that we hear about the realities and some of the challenges that some women go through? And at the same time, we also hear about the discrimination that happens for women above a certain age. What advice would you have for those women that may be more advanced in their careers and maybe facing some power struggles?
This is also very tough to answer, because perimenopause, all the women's health related condition, I mean, it's such a big range, and that this is a very systemic issue. I mean, the fact that we have to, you have to claim your space while you just have like, let's say even your every month's period, your energy level is just different. You have to justify this or justify motherhood. Any women's health related issues, it's actually already fail of the complete societal system. But that's nothing we can change in short term. For me personally, I still think first is to find allies, as in, you'll be surprised how many men are allies because their wife going through or their sister going through certain medical conditions. And at the end of the day, decision maker or in company, they are all humans. So they have daughters, they have mothers, they have, they are human beings first before they are a leader. So in a good ways, actually, to find influence, but let's assume, because you said women that are more advanced in their career. If you're more advanced in your career, I assume you have certain influence, so you are well known in the company. It's actually to get, I would say, women in similar stage, career wise or age wise. Okay, so you can brainstorm, because every company's policy is also different. To say, okay, so can we have one company we work with, they found a circle of the perimenopause. They have a cool name, which I forgot, something around perimenopause, but they made it really fun. As in, what are symptoms? They had their wall about women's conditions, and then they they invite healthcare professionals, and then invite this conversation. What does it mean? They educate, and in this kind of workshop, a lot of men actually came, and then so they actually understand what does it mean, and then get into conversation like the ERG groups, but higher power, someone who's in charge, and then someone who is in power to, one of the C-suite, to claim it, to say it, to announce this in the town hall, or to make this conversation normal. I think this is not some conversation that we hide. Who is experiencing the perimenopause? If you see, oh my God, in the town hall, 20% of women actually stand up, then you are less alone, and then it's not an individual issue. I think the challenge is that every woman going through as an individual issue, you have to make it as a systemic, collective issue. Then it's difficult to ignore. And it's not even an issue. It is what it is. It are sometimes, there are better time to have meeting. There are just like mother who have to pick up their child, and it's you want to rewrite the rule for you, and you have to find allies. Firstly, sponsor, and secondly, allies, and then to build from scratch. Okay, to make this message more more clear to everyone.
If you had to redesign leadership for the next generation of women, what would you change?
I want to say actually, you don't have to redesign leadership for women. I don't want to say I don't want to sound that I'm against men, but the workplace in general is designed for men by men. Just historically, it's nothing bad or good because it is designed for men by men. Often women just don't know the rules because we are more generalizing, more collaborative. We are more collective. We want to hold hands and sing kumbaya. Honestly, we want to like each other, love each other. We are like in the back in the stone time where men went hunting and the women are all together. We fed each other's babies. We are a tribe naturally. Modern society has divided the tribe per se. So, but then men, if the workplace is designed for men by men, so they are more masculine energies full in, as in, the who has the biggest, who has the biggest title, who drink the most beer. It's always about more, more, more. Duh. And I think if you keep, and then every woman, to a certain extent, I think women also need to speak men, to speak their language in order to get in the position of power and then make any changes. But we actually don't want to redesign leadership for women. You actually have to. My hope is that naturally, with the next generation rising, with more equality, I mean, generally we are moving up, although too slow. But one day there will be enough female leaders in the position of power of every level, from team leader, director, senior director, C-suite, and CEO. One day, when it is not that rare that a woman run a Fortune 500 company, I think things will naturally change because the innate leadership or the little girl helping her grandma to sell something, or the little girl who go to school and then see, oh, another girl is sitting alone having her lunch, and go to her, join her, because that's also leadership. I think a lot of things that women or girls in innate have inside of us. Once you have more of us in every level, the leadership narrative naturally will change.
One thing that comes to mind as you're answering this question is the reality that we have in certain organizations where there still is a gap between the salaries between men and women. What advice would you have for a woman that may want to actually seek a higher salary because she believes she deserves it, she believes she has achieved phenomenal milestones in comparison to the objectives that they've set in the organization, and that she's truly contributing in a beautiful way, but the salary increase does not seem to be moving in the right direction? What advice would you have for those women?
So you have to collect massive amount of data which justify, unfortunately, why the gap that you are seeing. Let's say, and then understand. I mean, I think this is the part that most women just don't do. We treat this thing with a lot of emotion. The pay gap. The man just we earned 83 cents. He earned €1, and then you are like claiming it, and then you have been taking the 83 cents for so long. Why should I give you the euro? Because you also stayed with the 83 cents. Me, if I run an organization purely from P&L perspective, unless you can argue it to bridge that gap. The gap, I mean, it's very clear the gap is not caused by you, it's a systemic issue, but we cannot change the system. I always say that upfront, is that you have to claim, okay, what make the gap that you are asking, why do they have to give it to you? How do you back it with data? As in, I have delivered this project and then this brought the company bottom line, top line, or savings. You have to talk, you have to make your language really sharp. You have to, assuming a lot of decision makers are men, you have to speak their language so they understand the impact. And very often we have no influence, no impact because we say, "Oh, I have been in this role, and now I have promoted to another role, and the you give me 5% increase, and I think I should have 12." Based on what? Yeah, because David has that as well. Okay, how do you know that David has that as well? Sometimes when women argue, their arguments are just, especially when it comes to salary, because we have been underprivileged for so long, it just brings up a lot of emotion that we actually forget to speak data. Now we say, okay, I can I can argue. I say I want 12%, and it's backed by data. They say, oh no, this season we still don't have it. It's not. Let's make it next year. Then hold them accountable. Say, okay, next year, meaning, okay, great. So we review this next 2 months, okay? As in, you always have to put it in wording and then follow up, and then are we on the right track? And if the company historically just are rather in the track to comfort you, the best thing is just to get another offer. I'm being very practical here. I think this is something that men do very, very, very easily, because women would believe, oh my God, we have to be loyal. We are so grateful for the little that they are giving us. So you have to you have to negotiate like a poker player. You have to negotiate your value and then claim it, state it, and what are they going to lose if they have to replace you? Because assuming you are good in what they do and you have rise to a certain level, it's always more expensive for them to replace you. Because in the moment where you are gone, just to have, I mean, everyone's replaceable for sure, but it's always easier to keep the person doing the great work there where she is or where he is. And it's always more troublesome for a company to replace someone. So if they can, and you make your case, it's actually inevitable to get it.
You have a phenomenal TEDx talk where you talk about women claiming their power, not only in the boardroom, but also in the bedroom. What advice would you like to share with our audience when it comes to women claiming their power within their personal lives and their relationships?
I think the number one glass ceiling women face are sleeping beside them. I think that's always my first hypothesis, or my probably I have just seen so many. And it's not I'm not saying that men they marry the wrong partner. Is that how they have come together historically will grow? Is that our own social condition, it actually taught us to accommodate and then to compromise, to be the good girl, to be the good wife, to be the good to be the good daughter-in-law, the good sister, and to be good. You will always have to compromise, unfortunately. And then the confidence or claiming power, all these things, all the big word we have been seeing. I think the good news is none of them is a character flaw or character deficit. It's all muscle. Just like your triceps, biceps, whatever muscle, the more you do it, the more natural you will come to you. You know how I speak? I think honestly, I have a chip on my shoulder. I think I don't speak very good English because I never learned. And in order to speak with the confidence I have today, it's not what I'm saying, it's how I say it. You cannot imagine, the 20-year-old me, how unconfident, I was the ugly girl, the bad in school, and then so many trouble. Therefore, if I can learn it, anybody can learn it. So going back to training the muscle, is that if your partner or your husband or your life partner is actually the person that is closest to you. And if you cannot make him now in a heterosexual relationship, if you compromise yourself, whatever, most of the time it's just micro, no? You said, okay, wash the dishes. And then he said, okay. And then 11 p.m. is still there. He's watching TV and it's annoys the shit out of you. So you wash yourself. That's compromise, no? You said, let him do it. But then he's gonna still lying there. Next day, the crocodile is gonna be all there. Let him be, there. And then the TEDx I was doing in Frankfurt, I was taking this example for sleeping inside the bedroom. How often do I hear women actually they just want to read, but then the men want to watch TV? So what does the woman do? The woman usually take earplugs so they can read, and then when he's still watching, when he's asleep, she's take the eye mask. A typical case is that in the body temperature of men are warmer. Now, perimenopause women aside, usually men feel warmer, so they make the room really cold. And then women, the body temperature is just it's just lower, so you freeze. So what do? So you just warm up, then you wear socks. You just close the window. No, but then it's not too hot to be for him. So it's always that I had someone arguing with me. It's if it's too hot for him, he cannot get rid of whatever he has. There are so many excuses or reasons that we have we have stories that we told ourselves. This is actually a good woman. It's very subtle. You can have the most empowered woman argue this with you because it's so subtle inside. This you think, okay, that's not the fight I need to pick. But are the micro stories that happens every day to you that ultimately trains you to be the good employee, the glue worker, the person who does not ask, that by default just compromise. If you don't claim the power at home, you will never be able to confidently claim your power at home.
I absolutely love what you have shared and how everything starts within our personal relationships about claiming our power. And I want to now dive into the topic of joy. And from your overall life experience, what would you say are the three main ingredients to living more joyfully?
I think joy has meant for me personally at different stage of my life had different meanings. In my very power seeking, power craving, validation craving ages, which is I think end 20, very beginning of 30. What brought me joy are results. Really, I was so dedicated to work. My work was everything for me. So when we got a win, from our tender, or when we, when my teammate got, when my people in my team they excel, or I was on the next pipeline to become the VP. Everything was work related. I actually didn't find joy in my personal life because therefore I was hiding from my personal life. And it only hit me one day, actually, the job I was mentioning, that the GM role I didn't get. Back then, I didn't understand what he meant. So I thought I met my ceiling. Then suddenly my life was crushing down because I recognized, oh my God, it's the first time somebody said no in my corporate career. So what if the next one they say no, then you are stuck, then you have nothing but work. Then I was in the crisis mode and then say, okay, you actually have to get your personal life. So I drew down, okay, what else could bring me? I didn't think I used the word joy, but what else can fulfill my life more? And then I met my partner eventually. So, and at this stage of my life, for example, joy is actually to understand myself every day better. Is that the older I get, the more I want to, the more pattern I see, what triggers me, what make me happy, what make me sad. And there's always a reason behind. It's never because if you feel good about yourself, nobody can make you feel bad about yourself. But very often, a lot of trigger from my kids, from my business partner, from my husband, is still, make me not at ease and make me lose joy to a certain extent. And every time when I understand, okay, why that make me feel X, Y, Z, actually that feeling give me a lot of joy and release. Therefore, I think there is no at this stage of my life, I would say the number one is actually to understand what drives one. What is something that is for me, for example, bigger than myself. What is something? Am I on a mission to do something? Because we are sent to this earth, every one of us. There is a mission. Most of us just don't know, because every one of us have something, can do something better than anybody else. So we have to find that mission, and I'm very fortunate that I found that to help women to rise to their highest potential. That gave me joy. So probably if I have to summarize in one thing, is probably to find something, to understand oneself better and find something that's bigger than ourselves.
Since you referenced not getting that promotion that you were hoping for, the thought of not being enough may often creep into our mind. What advice would you have for someone that may be listening today that has had a similar situation arise and are tackling this not being enough a reality?
I think that, so number one is actually to define what does enough mean. I think especially for ambitious people, ambitious women, that enough is a moving target. When I started to do this exercise a while ago and say, okay, this year enough means for me, is like to have, let's say, salary 100K back then, okay? And then I want to have 20% bonus, let's work related. And privately means I want to buy a first house, and then every year, most of the year I actually reach that. And then I see second year, the enoughness is a moving target. Next year I want to have 150. I mean growth naturally, but what I recognize that you set out yourself, most of us set out ourselves to fail because we set the target is a moving target. So we actually have to define what does enoughness mean to you, and then collect evidence. And I think I'm a person with a lot of self-doubt, in fact. And this not serving my clients well, not giving the right advice. So I'm working with someone who has been working with me for, I think, 6 months, and she benefits massively. She has transformed and she has changed in so many things that was so hard for her, and she just got made redundant. I had such a doubt in my head because someone else kept their job, but she didn't. And this was like my card house just crashed. I was like, oh my God, she must hate you. All these kind of things. I mean, but then she continued with me because this was I never asked that question, but something is inside for her. So a lot of things are just all in our head, probably. And we have to define what enoughness means for us and then measure, the wins and the losses. And again, speak with data in the moment where you see, okay, these are the things that actually I have achieved. It is enough, measure with what you have, like at work. This is the KPI. What have you achieved? If this is achieved, it is enough. Whether you feel it or not, that's emotional maturity. That's a complete different thing. And I think that's also something we can train and say, okay, if I have enough evidence, everyone around me seems to think I'm great, but I don't feel that way. These are the evidence. And after, I think, certain repetition, if you still don't feel that, I think it's time to find a therapist. So I go to therapists on a regular basis that help me to understand certain things that we have a huge blind spots everywhere, and we just can't see, and we have the same pattern. It's never enough, never enough. Then you can have $1 billion, still not enough. So therefore, I think going back to understand oneself, and then at the rational side to measure what does enoughness mean, to define what does enoughness mean, to measure is it enough, and then to feel how do you feel.
If you could challenge our audience to take one bold move this week, what would it be?
What is the hardest thing for you at your current stage? Let it be speaking up, or let it be, negotiate with your husband about something. What is something that you have, if you just think back, really sit there, especially we just started the year now, and what is something has been holding you back? It's every time you just procrastinate, you just don't want to face it, you don't want to do it, and you have been holding back for a while. What is that? The number one thing, do that the first thing in the morning. And I think that's I heard this from Ryan Holiday, the modern Stoicism genius, and then he said, actually eat the frog in the morning. Anytime, I think I never understood also in terms of cold plunges and all these hard things that people are doing. What I recognize is that it's not about the thing per se. It's rather about to build your resilience every day, to do something hard every day at the beginning of the day. It will set your day up to success.
Jingjing, thank you immensely for all the wisdom you have shared. Keep shining. I love absolutely everything you have shared with our audience today. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for having me.